if I wasn't positive in that moment and I just gave up, then I think it was fairly obvious what my outcome would be. I'm Billy Monger, DHL Ambassador, racing driver and motorsport presenter, and here's a story of my career and motorsport DNA. I think the phrase common DNA to me means that no matter where you're from, who you are, your gender, your race, everything like that, you should have the same opportunities as each other. I first got into racing because of my dad. Actually, when I was 2 years old, he bought me my first ever go-kart that I couldn't drive until I was 6. I was that slow when I first started. My dad actually used to run around the track in front of me. And I mean, he's not exactly Mo Farah, so. And then quite quickly, I remember being 7, 8 years old and jumping up and down on his bed at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning, being like, can we go to the kart track? The main thing with go-karting that hooked me in was that feeling of speed, the adrenaline that I got from it. There was a moment where I realised I wanted to do this for like the rest of my life, and that was probably when I won my first British Championship when I was 10 years old. And I think at that point I started to think, you know, actually this is something that I'm really good at, and a career of potentially a Formula 1 driver could be on the cards. I think like bigger picture now, I'm a bit older and I can reflect on, you know, my childhood, those memories and those times traveling around the world with my dad and like both of us chasing this crazy dream. That was something that I always look back on fondly. At that point, when I had my accident and I became a double amputee, there was a time, the first few days after I woke up from being in an induced coma, where you know, you sit there and you think, oh, why me? That's a huge moment of change in my life. And I didn't know whether I was going to be able to do that thing that brought me so much joy before, which was racing. But luckily, managed to turn my mentality around. Realising if I wasn't positive in that moment and I just gave up, then I think it was fairly obvious what my outcome would be. That I was going to have a pretty sad life. I think there was that sort of determination and drive quite quickly to not let the void that racing would leave me if I hadn't gone back down that route. I just wanted to give myself the opportunity to try to see whether racing was possible again. And if I'd tried and it hadn't worked out, I think that would have been something I could have dealt with. But yeah, just for me, not trying, it was the thing I wasn't willing to do. Not many people have driven racing cars as double amputees, let alone driven in Formula 3. The first few laps felt like this is all different, and I felt all of a sudden that place that was my comfort zone, it didn't feel so comfortable for those first few laps. And then after about 5 laps, things started to click. I started to relax, and I all of a sudden was like back in my happy place in that sweet spot. Presenting first sort of came across my radar actually when I was still racing myself, so back in the beginning of 2019. And to be honest, my first answer was no. I was a racing driver. I was, you know, my career was still ongoing. I remember my first ever race, which was in Australia, the first race of the season. Like I say, I had no experience. I remember, you know, chatting to the drivers for the first time and being on camera and thinking, nah, this is not for me. I'm not comfortable in this environment. By the end of the year, started to feel that buzz from going live on TV, being so close to the sport that I'd grown up absolutely, you know, wanting to be involved with. As my racing career sort of halted slightly, I guess you could say, by COVID and that whole situation, my presenting career continued, and it's something that I've built confidence in. Again, I've just started to really enjoy that. It's something that at first wasn't my priority or wasn't something I wanted to do, to eventually being something that I absolutely love. It doesn't matter what kind of challenge it is for me, but knowing that, you know, I can impact a lot of people and reach a lot of people and potentially change people's lives, that for me is like a huge, you know, driving force into all these other projects that, you know, I've got ambition to do in the future. best piece of advice I've ever been given. My doctor had a conversation with me very early on and basically said, if you work hard, you'll still be able to walk, you'll still be able to be independent, you'll still be able to do all these things. Just think about what you can control, and if you give your best effort and know that you couldn't have given it things any more effort, I think you can sleep pretty easy at night knowing that. My journey, it started from my dad passing on his passion to me, and it's continued by me just following that passion no matter what stood in my way. The main thing I've learned is if you're passionate about something and you love to do it, don't let anything stand in your way of letting you do that.